Commander Yuna had always thought that death would be loud. She had imagined the sound of metal breaking apart, the screaming of engines as they failed, the voices of her crew crying out in fear. She had prepared herself for chaos, for fire, for the violent end that came to so many who traveled the dark spaces between stars. The death, she now learned, was quiet. It was the soft hum of failing systems. It was the gentle flicker of lights that would soon go dark forever. It was the cold silence of a ship that was slowly dying, drifting through empty space like a leaf falling from a tree. The Pale Wing had been a good ship. For 12 years, it had carried Yuna and her crew across the galaxy, through dangerous territories and peaceful ones alike. It had survived storms of cosmic radiation, close encounters with hostile vessels, and the endless wear of deep space travel. But now, after the attack by Kethra raiders, the ship was broken beyond repair. Yuna stood alone on the bridge, her 4 eyes staring out through the main viewport at the stars. The stars were beautiful, she thought. Cold and distant, but beautiful. They did not care that she was dying. They would continue to burn long after she was gone, long after her ship became just another piece of debris floating in the void. Behind her, the door slid open with a weak hiss. The sound was wrong, too slow, a sign that even the simple mechanisms of the ship were failing. Yuna did not turn around. She knew who it was by the sound of the footsteps. Haniel, her navigator, walked slowly to stand beside her. Haniel was younger than Yuna by many years, her blue scales still bright, not yet faded by age and stress. But today, those scales looked pale, almost gray. Fear did that to their kind. "Commander," Haniel said softly, "I have finished the calculations." Yuna continued to stare at the stars. "Tell me." "The oxygen recyclers are operating at 7% capacity. At current consumption rates, we have approximately 6 hours of breathable air remaining." Haniel paused, and Yuna could hear the tremor in her voice. "The power core is failing. We will lose heat before we lose air. The cold will take us first." Yuna closed her eyes slowly. She had known this was coming. She had known it from the moment the Kethra weapons had torn through their hull, destroying their main engine and their emergency beacon in a single devastating attack. The raiders had not even bothered to finish them off. They had simply taken what they wanted from the cargo hold and left, knowing that the void would do their killing for them. "And Doyun?" Yuna asked. "He is in the engine room, still trying to repair the backup systems." Haniel's voice cracked slightly. "He will not stop. He believes he can save us." Yuna finally turned to look at her navigator. Haniel was trying to be strong, trying to maintain the discipline that was expected of a Valorian officer. But her hands were shaking, and her eyes were wet with tears she was too proud to let fall. "He is young," Yuna said gently. "The young always believe they can fight death. It is only when we grow old that we learn death cannot be defeated, only delayed." Haniel looked away. "Is there truly nothing we can do, Commander?" Yuna reached out and placed her hand on Haniel's shoulder. The gesture was unusual for her. Valorian commanders were taught to maintain distance from their crews, to lead with authority rather than affection. But what did such rules matter now? They were dying. The old formalities seemed foolish in the face of that truth. "We are 17 light years from home," Yuna said quietly. "Our beacon is destroyed. No one knows where we are. No one is coming." She squeezed Haniel's shoulder gently. "We have done everything we could. Now we must accept what cannot be changed." Haniel's tears finally fell, sliding down her pale scales. "I am afraid, Commander." "I know. So am I." They stood together in silence for a long moment, watching the stars. Somewhere in the depths of the ship, they could hear the faint sounds of Doyun working, the clang of tools against metal, the desperate efforts of a young engineer who refused to give up. Yuna wished she had his hope. But hope had left her when the raiders had jumped away, leaving them alone in the dark. Yuna thought about her life. She had served in the Valorian exploratory fleet for 40 years. She had seen wonders that most of her people could only dream of. She had walked on planets where the rain fell upward, where the forests glowed with inner light, where the mountains sang with the voice of ancient winds. She had negotiated peace treaties and survived small wars. She had loved and lost and loved again. It had been a good life, she decided. Not perfect, but good. If she had to die, at least she had truly lived first. But her crew. Haniel was barely 30 years old. Do-hyun was even younger, just 22, fresh from the engineering academy. They had so much life ahead of them, so many experiences they would never have. It was not fair that they would die here, in this empty corner of space. Forgotten and alone, nothing in the galaxy was fair. Yuna had learned that lesson long ago. The ship shuddered suddenly, and the lights flickered more violently than before. Yuna and Haniel both grabbed the nearest console to steady themselves. For a moment, Yuna thought the power core had finally failed completely. But then the lights stabilized, weak but still functioning. What was that? Haniel asked, fear sharp in her voice. Before Yuna could answer, Do-hyun's voice crackled over the internal communication system. The young engineer sounded breathless, exhausted, but there was something else in his voice. Something that sounded almost like excitement. Commander. Commander, come to the observation deck. Quickly. Yuna and Haniel exchanged confused looks. What could possibly matter now? What could be worth rushing for when they had only hours to live? But Yuna found herself moving anyway, walking as quickly as her tired legs would carry her through the dim corridors of the dying ship. Haniel followed close behind. They reached the observation deck and found Do-hyun standing at the large window, his young face pressed almost against the glass. His eyes wide with an emotion Yuna could not immediately identify. Look, he whispered. Look at the stars. Yuna looked. At first, she saw nothing unusual. Just the same cold, distant stars she had been watching for hours. But then she noticed it. One section of the sky was different. One section was dark, darker than it should have been. The stars in that area were disappearing, one by one, as if something was moving in front of them. Something very large. Yuna's heart began to beat faster. A ship. There was a ship out there, approaching them slowly through the void. But whose ship? The Kethra returning to finish what they started? Some other predator? Drawn by the scent of a wounded vessel? The dark shape grew larger, blocking more and more stars. It was enormous, far bigger than the pale wing. As it drew closer, Yuna could make out details. The ship was not sleek and elegant like Valorian vessels. It was blocky, industrial, covered in what looked like patches and repairs. It was ugly, she thought. Ugly and scarred and old, but it was also the most beautiful thing she had ever seen, because it meant that someone else was here. Someone else knew they existed. For better or worse, they were no longer alone in the dark. Who are they? Haniel breathed. Yuna did not answer. She could not. She simply stared at the approaching vessel, her four eyes wide, her dying heart filled with something she had thought was lost forever. Hope. The strange ship hung in space like a sleeping giant. Yuna watched it through the observation window, her mind racing with questions that had no answers. The vessel was massive, at least 10 times the size of the pale wing, but it moved with surprising grace for something so large and ugly. Lights blinked along its hull in patterns she did not recognize, and strange symbols were painted on its side in a language she had never seen before. Haniel had returned to the bridge and was frantically searching through the ship's database, trying to match the unknown vessel to any known species in the Galactic Registry. But her search found nothing. The ship belonged to no one. It existed in no record. As far as the combined knowledge of the Valorian exploratory fleet was concerned, the vessel approaching them should not exist at all. "This is impossible," Haniel said, her voice tight with confusion. "Every spacefaring species in the known galaxy is registered. Every ship design is documented. But this matches nothing." Do-hyun stood at the window beside Yuna, his young face a mixture of fear and fascination. "Maybe they are from beyond the galactic boundaries," he suggested. "From unexplored space." "No one comes from unexplored space," Haniel replied sharply. "The Galactic Council has mapped everything within 1,000 light years. If there was an unknown species out here, we would know about them." Yuna said nothing. She simply watched the ship as it slowly maneuvered closer to their position. She noticed that it had stopped at a respectful distance, neither approaching too close nor retreating. It was waiting, she realized. Waiting for them to make the first move. A soft beeping sound broke the silence. Haniel looked down at her console with wide eyes. "Commander," she said slowly, "they are sending us a communication request." Yuna felt her heart beating faster in her chest. Valorians had two hearts, and right now both of them were pounding with a mixture of fear and anticipation. This was the moment of truth. Whoever was on that ship would soon reveal themselves. They would be friends or enemies, saviors or killers. There was no way to know until she answered. "Open the channel," Yuna ordered. Haniel hesitated. "Commander, we know nothing about them. They could be hostile. They could be—" "We have 6 hours of air left," Yuna interrupted calmly. "Perhaps less. If they wanted to destroy us, they would have done so already. Our weapons are offline. Our shields are gone. We are helpless." She turned to look at her navigator with tired eyes. "What do we have to lose?" Haniel had no answer for that. After a moment, she nodded and pressed the button to open the communication channel. Static filled the bridge, harsh and crackling. Then, slowly a voice emerged from the noise. It was strange, different from any voice Yuna had ever heard. The sounds were softer than Valorian speech, the rhythm different. But whoever was speaking was trying to use Galactic Common, the shared language of all known species. Their pronunciation was imperfect, their grammar rough. But the words were understandable. "Unknown vessel. This is the boundless hope. We are from Earth. We detected fragments of your distress signal and came to investigate. Do you require assistance?" Yuna blinked in confusion. Earth? She had never heard of such a place. She looked at Haniel, who was already searching the database again. The navigator shook her head, indicating that she found nothing. Yuna stepped closer to the communication panel. "This is Commander Yuna of the Valorian exploratory fleet vessel Palewing. We were attacked by raiders and are badly damaged. Our life support is failing." She paused, uncertainty filling her voice. "Who are you? What species are you? We have no record of your people in our database." There was a moment of silence. Then the voice returned, and Yuna could hear something like surprise in its tone. "We are human," the voice said. "From the planet Earth in the Sol system. We are new to space travel compared to most species. We have been exploring the stars for only 200 of our years." 200 years. That was nothing. The Valorians had been traveling through space for over 3,000 years. Most of the major species in the galaxy had been spacefaring for at least a millennium. 200 years was barely enough time to explore one's own solar system, let alone travel this far into uncharted territory. "You say you detected our distress signal," Yuna said carefully. "But our emergency beacon was destroyed in the attack. We sent no signal." "Your main beacon, yes," the human voice replied. "But your ship is still producing low-level electromagnetic emissions." We have sensors designed to detect such faint signatures. It is how we find vessels in trouble. Haniel leaned close to Yuna and whispered urgently, "Commander, this could be a trap. They claim to be rescuers, but we have no proof. They could be slavers or organ harvesters, or worse. The galaxy is full of predators who pretend to be friends." Yuna knew this well. In her 40 years of service, she had seen many terrible things. She had seen ships lured to their doom by false distress calls. She had seen traitors betrayed by those they trusted. The galaxy was not a kind place. Trust was a luxury that few could afford. But as she looked around the dying bridge of her dying ship, she realized that suspicion was a luxury she could no longer afford either. Her crew was going to die. In a few hours, they would be frozen corpses drifting through the void. If there was even the smallest chance that these strangers could save them, she had to take it. "We need help," Yuna said into the communication channel, her voice firm despite her fear. "Our oxygen is running out. Our power is failing. If you are truly here to rescue us, then we accept your assistance." "Understood," the human voice replied warmly. "We are sending a team over now. Please do not be alarmed. We mean you no harm. We are here to help." The channel went silent. Yuna turned to face her crew. Haniel still looked worried, her scales shifting from gray to pale blue with anxiety. But Doyen's face showed something different. The young engineer was actually smiling, a small, hopeful smile that made him look even younger than his years. "Humans," Doyen said softly, tasting the word. "I wonder what they look like." Yuna did not answer. She was watching through the window as a small shuttle detached from the huge human ship and began flying toward them. The shuttle was as ugly as its mothership, boxy and practical, covered in the same patchwork of repairs. But it flew steadily, confidently, carrying strangers who claimed to want nothing more than to save their lives. Yuna wanted to believe them. She wanted to believe that somewhere in this cold, cruel galaxy, there existed beings who would help strangers simply because they needed help. But experience had taught her that such goodness was rare, perhaps even imaginary. Every species looked out for itself. Every empire built itself on the suffering of others. That was the way of things. The shuttle grew closer. In a few minutes, these humans would be aboard her ship. She would look into their faces and know the truth. She would see if they were saviors or monsters, friends or foes. Her hand moved instinctively toward the weapon at her belt. Then she stopped. What was the point? If the humans wanted to hurt them, there was nothing she could do to stop it. She was too weak, too tired, too close to death. All she could do was wait and hope. Hope. That strange feeling again. It hurt somehow. It hurt because she had forgotten how much she wanted to live. The shuttle docked with a soft clang that echoed through the empty corridors of the Pale Wing. Somewhere in the ship, an airlock was opening. Strangers were boarding. The next few minutes would decide everything. Yuna straightened her uniform, squared her shoulders, and prepared to meet the humans. The airlock door opened slowly, groaning and scraping because of the damage to the ship. Cold air rushed in, mixing with the stale, thin atmosphere of the Pale Wing. Yuna stood in the corridor with Haniel beside her, waiting. Her hand hovered near her weapon, but she did not draw it. She had made her choice. Now she would see if it was the right one. 3 figures stepped through the airlock. They were wearing thick environmental suits, bulky and white, with clear helmets that covered their faces. The suits made them look bigger than they probably were, and for a moment, Yuna felt a flash of fear. These creatures were completely unknown to her. She had no idea what they were capable of. The lead figure stopped a few steps into the corridor and raised both hands in a gesture that seemed meant to show they carried no weapons. Then, slowly, they reached up and removed her helmet. Yuna's breath caught in her throat. The human was unlike any beings she had ever seen. Their skin was a warm brown color, smooth and without scales. They had only 2 eyes, round and dark, set in a face that was soft and symmetrical. Black hair was pulled back from their forehead, and their mouth curved upward in an expression that Yuna recognized as a smile. Most species smiled to show friendship. She hoped humans did the same. "I am Captain Park Soman," the human said, her voice the same one they had heard over the communication channel. "You must be Commander Yuna. I am very glad we found you in time." Yuna stared at the human captain. Soman was smaller than she had expected, shorter than Yuna herself. The human's build was light, almost delicate, compared to the powerful bodies of Valorians. And yet there was something in her eyes, a warmth and steadiness that made Yuna feel strangely calm. "Thank you for coming," Yuna said carefully. "We were not expecting rescue. We had accepted our fate." Someone's smile faltered slightly. "No one should have to accept such a fate. Not while we are nearby." She turned and gestured to her companions, who were also removing their helmets. "This is Taiho, my medical officer, and Jiwon, our engineer. We are here to help however we can." Taiho was taller than Soman, with a broader build and a serious face. His hair was short and dark, and his eyes moved quickly around the damaged corridor, assessing the situation with professional efficiency. Jiwon was younger, with a round face and quick, nervous movements. She carried a large bag of tools over one shoulder and was already looking at the damaged wall panels with interest. "Where's your crew?" Taiho asked, his voice deep and calm. "Our sensors indicated 3 life signs." "I am here," a weak voice called from behind Yuna. She turned to see Do-hyun stumbling down the corridor toward them. The young engineer looked terrible. His scales were gray, his breathing was labored, and he could barely stay on his feet. The hours of desperately trying to repair the ship had drained him completely. Taiho moved immediately. Without hesitation, without asking permission, he crossed the corridor and caught Do-hyun just as the young Valorian's legs gave out. With surprising gentleness, the human medic lowered Do-hyun to the floor and pulled a breathing mask from his suit. "Oxygen deprivation," Taiho said calmly, pressing the mask to Do-hyun's face. "He has been working too hard in thin air. He needs rest and clean oxygen immediately." Yuna watched in amazement as the human worked. Taiho's movements were quick and confident, but also incredibly gentle. He spoke softly to Do-hyun, words in a language Yuna did not understand but which sounded soothing. Within moments, color was returning to the young engineer's scales, and his breathing was becoming easier. Meanwhile, Jiwon had moved to Hanyul's side and was examining a cut on the navigator's arm that Yuna had not even noticed. Hanyul flinched at first, surprised by the human's touch. But Jiwon just smiled reassuringly and continued her work, cleaning the wound with a solution from her medical kit. "This is not bad," Jiwon said in a cheerful voice. "It will heal quickly. You were lucky the debris did not hit anything important." Hanyul looked at Yuna with confusion in her eyes. Yuna understood exactly what her navigator was feeling. These humans were behaving as if helping strangers was the most natural thing in the world. They asked no questions about payment. They made no demands. They simply saw beings in need and began helping them. It was wrong, somehow. It did not match anything Yuna had learned about the galaxy in 40 years of service. Soman approached Yuna while her crew worked on the Valorians. The human captain's expression was kind but also concerned. "Your ship is badly damaged," Soman said quietly. "Our sensors show multiple hull breaches, a failing power core, and life support at critical levels. We can stabilize your systems temporarily, but you will not be able to travel far in this vessel." Yuna nodded slowly. She had known this already. The Pale Wing was dying. Nothing could change that. "We can tow you to the nearest space station," Someone continued. Or, if you prefer, we can transport you and your crew to our ship and take you wherever you need to go. The choice is yours. The choice is yours. Such simple words, yet they struck Yuna like a blow. In her experience, rescuers always had conditions. They always wanted something in return. Territory, information, favors, payment. No one helped for free. The galaxy did not work that way. Why? Yuna asked, the word coming out before she could stop it. Somin tilted her head slightly, a gesture of confusion. Why what? Why are you helping us? Yuna's voice was harder than she intended, filled with suspicion she could not entirely hide. You do not know us. We have nothing to offer you. We are not your allies, not your kind. You owe us nothing. So why risk yourselves to save strangers? Somin was quiet for a long moment. Her dark eyes studied Yuna's face with an expression that was difficult to read. Then, slowly, she smiled again. It was a sad smile this time, touched with something that might have been pity. Is that truly so strange to you? Somin asked softly. To help someone who is suffering? Yuna did not know how to answer. She thought of all the things she had seen in her long career. The empires that crushed the weak. The corporations that exploited the desperate. The raiders who killed for sport. The politicians who spoke of unity while building walls. In all her years, kindness without conditions had been so rare that she had almost stopped believing it existed. Someone seemed to understand without being told. She reached out and placed her hand on Yuna's arm. The touch was warm, gentle, and entirely unexpected. On our world, Someone said, there is an old tradition. When someone is drowning, you do not ask them if they can pay before you throw them a rope. You simply throw the rope. That is what we do out here. We throw ropes to people who are drowning in the dark. Yuna felt something break inside her. It was not a painful breaking, not like a bone or a wound. It was more like a wall crumbling, a barrier she had built over decades to protect herself from disappointment. Tears formed in her 4 eyes, and she could not stop them from falling. I do not understand you, Yuna whispered. I do not understand how you can be this way. Somin squeezed her arm gently. You do not need to understand. You only need to let us help you. Behind them, Taiho had helped Doyun to his feet. The young engineer was breathing normally now, supported by the human medic's strong arm. Jiwon had finished treating Haniel's wound and was already moving toward the engine room, eager to see what could be done about the failing power systems. Yuna looked at her crew, then at the humans who had appeared from nowhere to save them. She still did not understand. Perhaps she never would. But for the first time in many hours, she believed that she might actually survive this day. Thank you, she said to Somin, her voice thick with emotion. Thank you for throwing us the rope. Somin smiled. You are welcome. Now, let us get you somewhere safe. The boundless hope was nothing like any ship Yuna had ever seen. From the outside, it looked ugly and old, covered in patches and repairs, like a garment that had been mended too many times. But inside, it was warm. It was alive. It was filled with light and sound, and the smell of food cooking somewhere nearby. Yuna stood in the corridor of the human vessel, supported by Somin on one side and Haniel on the other. Her legs were weak from exhaustion and oxygen deprivation, but she insisted on walking rather than being carried. She was still a commander. She would maintain what little dignity she had left. The humans had transferred them from the dying, pale wing with remarkable efficiency. Within an hour of boarding, Jiwon had managed to stabilize the Valorian ship systems, enough to keep it intact while it was towed behind the boundless hope. It would never fly again under its own power, but at least it would not fall apart. For now, that was enough. Taeho had taken Doyun directly to the medical bay. where the young engineer was now resting comfortably under clean blankets, breathing pure oxygen and recovering his strength. Haniel had refused to leave Yuna's side, so she walked with them through the corridors of the human ship, her eyes wide with wonder at everything she saw. The walls were covered with pictures and decorations, photographs of places Yuna did not recognize, paintings of landscapes that must have come from the human homeworld, handwritten notes and drawings made by children, pinned to boards with small metal pieces. It looked like someone's home, not a rescue vessel operating in dangerous space. "You decorate your ship," Yuna observed, her voice tired but curious. Soman smiled. "We spend months out here in the dark. Sometimes years. If we did not make it feel like home, we would go crazy." She pointed to a drawing on the wall, a childish picture of a large ship surrounded by stars. "My niece made that for me before I left. She is 7 years old. She wants to be a space captain like me someday." Yuna studied the drawing. It was simple and clumsy, the kind of picture that any child in the galaxy might make. But someone had framed it carefully and hung it where everyone could see. Such a small thing, but it told her more about humans than any database entry ever could. They reached a large room that Soman called the common area. It was filled with soft chairs and tables, and several humans were sitting there, eating meals and talking quietly. They all looked up when Yuna and Haniel entered, and their faces showed surprise. Yuna realized that they were probably not used to seeing Valorians. Her species was known throughout the galaxy, but these humans were new to space. They might never have met anyone who was not human before, but the surprise quickly changed to something else. Warm smiles, friendly nods. One human, a young male with messy hair and a kind face, immediately stood up and offered his chair to Haniel. "Please sit," he said in awkward galactic common. "You must be tired. Rest here." Haniel looked at Yuna uncertainly. Yuna nodded, and her navigator slowly sank into the offered chair. It was too big for her, designed for human bodies, but it was soft and warm. Haniel's eyes closed almost immediately, exhaustion finally catching up with her. Selman guided Yuna to another chair nearby. "You should rest too, Commander. You have been through a terrible experience." "I have questions first," Yuna said stubbornly. "I need to understand." Selman sat down across from her, her expression patient. "Ask what you wish. I will answer if I can." Yuna gathered her thoughts. There was so much she wanted to know, so much that did not make sense to her. She decided to start with the most basic question. "How long have humans been doing this?" she asked. "This rescue work. How long?" Soman leaned back in her chair. "This particular ship has been operating for 12 years. But humans have been helping each other for as long as we have existed. It is in our nature, I think. When we see someone suffering, something inside us wants to help. We cannot always explain it. We simply feel it. But you help strangers," Yuna pressed. "Aliens, species you have never met. Beings who are nothing like you. You are not so different from us," Soman said with a gentle smile. "You have families. You have dreams. You feel fear and hope and love. The shape of your body does not matter. What matters is that you are alive and you are in danger, and we could help." Yuna shook her head slowly. "In my experience, that is not how the galaxy works. Species help their own kind. Empires protect their own interests. Strangers are competitors at best, threats at worst. Kindness between different peoples is rare." Someone's smile faded slightly. Her dark eyes became serious. "I know. We have learned this since we started exploring the stars. The galaxy can be a cruel place. Many species we have met have been suspicious of us, even hostile. They do not understand why we help without asking for payment. Some think it is a trick. Others think we are foolish. Are you not?" Yuna asked bluntly. Is it not foolish to give so much and ask for nothing? Perhaps, someone admitted. But we would rather be foolish and kind than wise and cruel. She paused, her eyes looking at something far away, something Yuna could not see. On our world, there is much suffering, much injustice. We have done terrible things to each other throughout our history. Wars, slavery, cruelty beyond imagination. We are not perfect. We are not innocent. Yuna listened carefully. This was closer to what she expected. Every species had darkness in its past. Humans were apparently no different. But we have also learned, Soman continued. Slowly, painfully, we have learned that kindness is stronger than cruelty. That helping others makes us stronger, not weaker. That the rope you throw to a stranger today might be thrown back to you tomorrow. She looked directly at Yuna. We came to the stars hoping to find others who believe the same thing. So far, we have been disappointed. But we keep looking. We keep hoping. Yuna sat in silence for a long time, thinking about someone's words. She thought about her own people, the Valorians, who were considered one of the more civilized species in the galaxy. Even they operated on principles of trade and mutual benefit. They helped others only when there was something to gain. The idea of helping simply because it was right, because suffering should be reduced wherever it was found, was not part of their culture. You have strange values, Yuna finally said. But I think they are good values. Someone's smile returned. Thank you. Coming from a commander of the Valorian fleet, that means a great deal. The door to the common area opened, and Taiho entered. The tall medic looked tired but satisfied. He walked over to Yuna and bowed his head respectfully. Your engineer is awake and asking for you, Taiho reported. He is recovering well. The oxygen treatment worked perfectly. He should be fully healthy within a day or two. Relief flooded through Yuna. Do-Hyun was safe. Her crew was safe. Against all odds, against everything she had believed possible, they were going to survive. Thank you, she said to Taiho. Thank you for saving him. Taiho shrugged, as if saving lives was the most ordinary thing in the world. It is my job. Besides, he is a good kid. He kept talking about engineering even while he was half unconscious. I think he wants to see our engine room. Despite everything, Yuna laughed. It was a small laugh, weak and rusty from disuse, but it was real. That sounds like Do-Hyun. He loves machines more than most people love their families. Taiho grinned. Then he will fit in well here. Ji-won is the same way. She has probably already adopted him as a little brother. The common area was warm. The humans around her were talking and laughing, including her in their conversations, as if she had always been part of their crew. Hanyul was sleeping peacefully in her borrowed chair, and somewhere in the medical bay, Do-Hyun was recovering and dreaming of engines. Yuna felt something she had not felt in years. She felt safe. She felt cared for. She felt like she mattered, not because of her rank or her usefulness, but simply because she was alive. It was a strange feeling. A good feeling. A feeling she wanted to hold on to for as long as she could. Commander, someone said gently, you really should rest now. We have a long journey ahead of us. Yuna nodded slowly. For the first time in days, she did not resist the pull of exhaustion. She let her eyes close, let her body relax into the soft human chair, and let herself fall into a deep, peaceful sleep. She was safe. She was among friends. Against all expectations, she had found kindness in the darkness. 3 weeks later, Commander Yuna stood in the great chamber of the Galactic Council. The room was enormous, designed to hold representatives from hundreds of species. Today, it was packed with delegates from across the known galaxy, all of them watching her with curious eyes. News of her rescue had spread faster than she had expected. An unknown species saving a Valorian commander in uncharted space was the kind of story that captured attention. Una had not wanted this. She had wanted to return home quietly, to report to her superiors, to forget the whole terrible experience. But the council had demanded her testimony. They wanted to know about these humans. They wanted to understand the threat, or the opportunity, that this new species might represent. So here she stood, alone in the center of the chamber, with thousands of eyes upon her. Her uniform was new, her scales were healthy again, and her body had fully recovered from the ordeal. But inside, she was changed in ways that no one could see. Commander Una of the Valorian Exploratory Fleet, the council speaker announced, his voice echoing through the chamber. You may give your report. Una took a deep breath. She had prepared a formal statement approved by her government, carefully worded to present the facts without emotion. But as she opened her mouth to speak, she found that she could not say the words. They felt wrong. They felt like lies. Instead, she spoke from her heart. I have served the Valorian fleet for 40 years, she began, her voice steady but soft. In that time, I have seen many things. I have seen the beauty of distant stars and the wonders of ancient civilizations. But I have also seen cruelty. I have seen empires built on the backs of the weak. I have seen treaties signed in blood and broken in greed. I believed this was the nature of the galaxy. I believed that to survive was to harden oneself, to trust no one, to expect nothing from strangers. The chamber was silent. Every delegate was listening. Then my ship was attacked, Una continued. We were left to die in empty space, far from any help. Our beacon was destroyed. Our power was failing. Our air was running out. I told my crew to accept their fate. I had accepted mine. She paused, remembering those dark hours. The cold, the fear, the terrible certainty that death was coming. Then a ship appeared. A ship belonging to a species I had never heard of. A species called humans, from a world called Earth. Una's voice grew stronger. They came with nothing but good intentions. They asked nothing from us. They did not demand payment or alliance or information. They simply saw beings in need and chose to help. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Many of the delegates looked skeptical. Some looked suspicious. This was not how the galaxy worked, and they all knew it. I did not believe them at first, Una admitted. I searched for hidden motives. I waited for the trap to reveal itself. But it never came. The humans treated us with kindness and respect. They healed our wounds, fed us, gave us shelter. They brought us safely to this station and asked for nothing in return. She looked around the chamber. Meeting the eyes of delegates from species she had known all her life, Valorians, Kethra, Morvani, Silicons, all of them powerful, all of them calculating, all of them wondering what advantage the humans were seeking. I asked their captain why they helped us, Una said. She told me something I will never forget. She said that on her world, when someone is drowning, you do not ask them if they can pay before you throw them a rope. You simply throw the rope. The chamber fell completely silent. Even the most cynical delegates seemed moved by her words. The humans have a phrase, Una continued. When asked why they help strangers, they say, what else would we do? As if kindness is the obvious choice. As if compassion is the default response. As if there could be no other way to live. She stood straighter, her voice rising with conviction. I have lived for over 100 years. I have commanded ships and negotiated treaties. I have survived wars and watched friends die. I thought I understood the galaxy. But the humans have shown me that I was wrong. They have shown me that another way is possible. That beings can choose kindness over cruelty, generosity over greed, hope over fear. Una turned to face the council speaker directly. The humans are not powerful. she said. They have no great fleet, no vast empire, no seat on this council. They are young and their technology is simple. Many of you will dismiss them as unimportant. But I believe you would be making a mistake. Because power is not only measured in ships and weapons, it is also measured in the hearts of those who wield it. And the humans have something that many powerful species have lost. They have compassion. They have hope. They have the courage to be kind in a galaxy that often rewards only cruelty. She paused, letting her words sink in. I propose that the Galactic Council recognize the humans as a valuable addition to our community. I propose that we offer them support and protection as they continue their rescue work. Not because they asked for it, not because we will gain some advantage, but because they have shown us who we could be if we chose to be better. The chamber erupted in noise. Voices shouted in dozens of languages. Some delegates protested. Others cheered. The debate that followed lasted for hours, with arguments on all sides. But in the end, the council voted. The humans would receive official recognition. The Valorian government would provide supplies and support for the Boundless, Hope and any other human rescue vessels that operated in galactic space. It was a small victory, a tiny step, but it was a beginning. Far away, on the Boundless Hope, Captain Park Soman received the news. She was sitting in the common area with her crew when the message arrived. Taiho read it aloud, his deep voice filled with disbelief. Official recognition from the Galactic Council. Supply support from the Valorians. Protection in galactic space. He looked up at Soman with wide eyes. Captain, do you understand what this means? Soman smiled softly. She understood perfectly. It meant that they could help more people. It meant that their little ship with its patchwork repairs and volunteer crew had made a difference that would ripple outward across the stars. Jiwan was crying happy tears. The rest of the crew was cheering. Somewhere in the back of the room, Do-hyun was watching them all with a smile on his young face. The Valorian engineer had decided to stay with the humans for a while, to learn from them and help where he could. Yuna had given her blessing, understanding that some experiences were more valuable than any formal training. Wow, Soman said, standing up and looking at her crew. It seems we have work to do. There are still people out there who need help. Taiho grinned. What else would we do? The Boundless Hope turned its ugly, scarred hull toward the stars and sailed on, carrying its cargo of hope and kindness into the darkness. Behind them, word of their deeds spread from system to system, from species to species. Some laughed at the foolish humans who gave without receiving. Others wondered if perhaps there was wisdom in such foolishness. And slowly, very slowly, the galaxy began to change. Other ships started running rescue operations. Other species began helping strangers without demanding payment. The ripples spread outward, touching lives that the crew of the Boundless Hope would never know about. It started with one ship, one crew, one simple question: what else would we do? And it grew into something that would change the stars forever. In her quarters on the Valorian homeworld, Commander Yuna sat by her window, looking up at the night sky. Somewhere out there, her friends were sailing through the dark, throwing ropes to drowning strangers, proving that kindness was not weakness, but the greatest strength of all. She smiled and whispered a human phrase she had learned. What else would we do? The stars twinkled in response, cold and distant, but no longer quite so empty. Because now Yuna knew the truth. Even in the darkest corners of the galaxy, there were hands reaching out to help. Human hands. Strange and soft and impossibly kind. And that made all the difference.